Hey everyone, this is Chris and Sandy Benton with the Chris and Sandy Show, where we get up close and personal with some amazing guests throughout the entertainment industry. And today, like I said, every episode, we got a great one for you. Who do we have?
We have singer-songwriter Kate Cameron with us today. Her unique vocal sound lands somewhere between her Boston roots and her Nashville idols. Her latest single, Wait Up, is a modern Nashville take on a classic soulful feel.
And we're excited to have her on the show, so welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I really appreciate the time.
It's definitely our pleasure.
Yes.
So, as you know, last few years have been rough for a lot of people, but especially entertainment. So take us back and tell us a little bit of how all that affected what you do, and what have you done to maneuver through it the last couple of years?
Yeah, it was interesting. In 2020, I was kind of in a weird employment spot. I was working full time, and then I was trying to get my real estate license all while doing the music in Nashville and trying to co-write. And it really gave me a few months to dial back into solo writing and kind of, where I started, 10, 15 years ago as a teenager, just writing in my bedroom. It really took me back to those high school days of just writing, without a real end goal in mind, but just writing for the sake of feeling good about it. And it really, dialed me back into a special love for music that I originally always had, but sometimes Nashville can feel so fast paced sometimes with different writers, different producers, different industry events that we all have to go to. So it was nice to take a few months and slow down and really dial back into why I started music in the first place.
Yeah, because sometimes a slowdown is exactly what you need to speed back up.
100%. It locks you back into place. It lets you dial in your thoughts a little bit. So it was really nice for me to kind of go back to where I started, I guess.
It was about the opposite for us because we launched this show January of 2020. So a couple months before everything got shut down. I remember our original plan was maybe 100 interviews that first year to be a great foundation. And then everything gets shut down. And as I'm watching, I told Sandy, this might actually be our time to shine because people who normally wouldn't come on a brand new show might be willing to come on a new show. Yeah. So we ended up doing over 300 interviews that first year, and we're about 600 now.
That's incredible. Well, congratulations on all that success. It's really, really awesome. I looked through the past couple dozen interviews you guys have done, and I was really obviously impressed. And I was like, I'm excited to be on this show. This was awesome.
Well, we appreciate that. Yeah. So, as you know, a lot of people would ask, when did you know you wanted to do music? But I always like to go deeper than that. When did it click for you that this could be a career?
Well, I guess I started singing as soon as I could talk. I don't remember ever not singing, even in kindergarten when the teachers asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always just wrote singer on the page. Oh, wow. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know that meant moving to Nashville and songwriting. For as long as I can remember, I was just singing, dancing, doing all the things that you could do as a kid. And then when I was about 11, sixth grade-ish, going into middle school, I picked up guitar just out of my dad played a little bit of guitar and he had one laying around the house, and I just sort of took a chord book and taught myself to play. And from there, started taking songwriting to the next level. And yeah, I guess really everything clicked when I was 14 or 15 and I started going into the studio, just a kind of town studio, a couple towns away from me. My mom would drive me after school and I would get in the recording sessions. I was like, I kind of get this. I feel like I could kind of figure this out for myself, even though I didn't have a leg to stand on at the time. And sometimes I still don't feel like I do. But even at that young age of, 14, 15, getting in the studio, I just found that instant passion for it. Even before I was playing in bars and, venues in Nashville, I felt that at such a young age. So it's just kind of continued and grown from then.
Love that. Now, you said that you used to write on things for career to singer. Did any teachers ever frown on that?
So I actually went to Berklee College of Music. So that's where I attended college. I did graduate with a songwriting degree. So obviously when I was at Berklee, there's a lot of experimental work going on. Music industry, especially country music, was changing rapidly. That was between 2011 and 2015 that I was there. So I felt like I was exploring a lot of different sounds, maybe not always sounding like myself, but trying to explore as many genres as possible, trying to impress my teachers or get along with my peers or play a show in a bar in Boston. And all those factors are different. You know, you're playing different music for your teachers than you would play at a bar. So I felt like all those aspects really dove into me around, you know, that 18 to 21 years of age. But when I was in high school, it was definitely a process because there weren't other kids that were writing songs. And I grew up, so there might have been one or two other kids sort of kind of doing that, but that's it. Really, you know, no one else was writing songs, trying to make records as a teenager where I grew up, or it wasn't even something people talked about. You know, it wasn't like I grew up near Nashville or industry city or anything like that. So it was definitely like a learning curve on how to relate to people and how to get that ball rolling. But once I got to Berklee, again, it just was another learning experience, and you kind of click all the dots together eventually and figure out what your personal sound is.
And, you know, I think a lot of people too, who are outside the music industry, one thing that they don't see, you know, they see the success of a Blake Shelton, and then they see maybe someone that they used to know that tried it for years and failed, but they don't realize that there's so many levels in between that you could literally make a living and nobody never know your name.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when I was in college, I would play bars over the summer when I wasn't in school, and I was making more money at 19, 20 years old than I am now in some months. You know, it was crazy, and nobody knew who I was. I was a nobody, but you know, I just found the right venues to play at the right time with the right crowd of people. And but no one knows that. You know, I've been in Nashville for 7 years now. I moved here in 2015. Even before that, I was interning on Music Row. And still, like, I introduce myself to people every single day, and they have no idea how long I've been singing or playing shows, but you still go in with that, you know, green personality of I'm still ready to learn. I still want to work hard. And I feel like that always relates well to people.
And I love that. That's a perfect lead into the segment I like to go now. Is, as you know, a lot of people, they see the glory in what artists do, but they don't see the grind, the sacrifice, the tears, the struggles it takes to get to any level within entertainment. I always like to talk about that side of it because nobody does. So take a few moments and tell us a little bit about some of the sacrifices and struggles you've had to go through even to get to where you are today.
Yeah, I actually, while I've been in Nashville, I've had a few full-time career type of jobs that had nothing to do with music. And the one that was probably the most implemental for me was I used to manage Airbnbs for about 2 years. I managed 60 apartments all over the city. And that probably, it was a really hard job. I was about 24, 25 at the time when I was doing it. And I was probably a little too young for the job, but I kind of, I fell into it. I started part-time at the company, and eventually they just threw me into the manager role. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm running the show now. Anyways, so it took me, those couple years were interesting for me because it was the first time that I kind of put music on the back burner. And like people forget, like I went to music school at college. So there was 4 years in college, even before that, where I was doing nothing but music. Like school was music, my friends were music, my nightlife was music, everything. And then all of a sudden I'm dropped into this, you know, job, property manager. And it took, I'm telling you, it took 2020, the pandemic, to happen to click me back into that. Like, like music is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's so easy to get off track. But even besides that, you know, I meet people every day in Nashville that have no idea who I am. They assume I don't know what I'm doing. And that's okay. You know, that nobody has to assume anything about you when they first meet you. So I just always try to show up to a situation or a conversation with like, so happy to meet you, like happy to be here. I'm ready to work, you know, and no one can take your work ethic away from you. So if you show up with a positive attitude and get some good work done, like no one's ever going to be able to take that from you, whether someone likes your music or not. So I always just try to show up ready to roll.
You know, a lot of people, for the pandemic made you go back to your roots. A lot of people did the opposite, where, you know, they had this dream, they had this vision of being on stage, and then the pandemic made them really have a gut check. Is this really what I want to do with my life?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had friends that moved out of town. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had friends that literally left town because once, the nightlife of Nashville sort of came to a stop, they just weren't prepared to keep going on their own. So I literally had friends that had that same feeling of like, well, I guess I'm going to move home because what else do I do? And I'm like, there's so much you can do, you just have to stand on your own two feet sometimes,
And they call it a 10-year city for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's true. I've been here 7 years, 8 if you count my internship in 2014. So it's pretty wild.
And I think that's some of the stuff that people don't realize. They move to Nashville and they think that it's going to happen within the first year or 2 years. And you know what? There might be your small exceptions that happens. But for the most part, it's 8, 10, 12 years on your average person who sticks it out. And I think a lot of times that's the part that gets people is you get to the point to where you're questioning everything because you're like, is this ever going to work?
Yeah, I feel like that every day. And I just, trust that like my love for music carries me first and foremost. And like, I actually was listening to this really cool interview with Kenny Chesney the other day. He was doing a Peloton class, like the spin bikes. Oh, he was doing one of those, but it was a treadmill class anyways. And they had him on as a guest. And he was saying like, if you are meant to have a career in music, it's because you can't not do it. Like he, Kenny Chesney could walk away. He could have walked away 20 years ago and, been all right. But he said he wakes up every day and he literally cannot not work. And that's how I still feel, I'm 29 years old now and I still feel like that every single time I sing on a microphone or write a song. I still just can't not do it. So I just do it,
Yeah, I remember years ago, we interviewed Alison Steele from Two Still Girls when they were doing stuff. And one of the questions I asked was about about advice. And I remember, I'll never forget that her answer, she looked in the camera and said, if you can do anything else and be happy, go do that. She goes, and just keep music as a hobby. She goes, because once you realize that this is what you have to do, she goes, you sacrifice your family, you sacrifice friends, you sacrifice your body. He says, there are so many sacrifices within the music industry that if you are not, if you don't have to do this, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's a grind. And I'm telling you, there are more, I don't want to say there are more letdowns than positive, things that happen, but you're going to hear no a lot. And, if you're doing it to hear a yes, then that's probably the wrong reason. I always want to grow and learn and be kind of a fire starter. That's always been my personality, is to kind of like start fresh. And I still feel like that. And I don't, it takes, being understood sometimes is overrated, and I kind of feel like that's kind of what being a musician is all about, is people are not going to understand you. And then one day they do, and then you become successful and it all clicks into place and you're like, finally, like someone gets it. But most of the time, if you're not on the radio every day, like people aren't going to necessarily understand what you're doing, but that's okay. Like I don't understand all my friends' careers either. They might be an engineer or, going to med school and like going to law school. I don't have to understand every piece of their career either, but we're still friends,
Yeah, I remember an old saying in the business world that says when you start to do something different that people don't get, that first people tell you it can't be done. Then as you're doing it, they tell you it won't last. Then as you go through there, they tell you you were lucky. And then the last phase is they're telling everybody, oh, I knew they'd make it.
Yeah, 110%. It's so crazy. And you just never know who you're going to meet. You never know that next song that you're going to write or the next video that you post, you just never know. So it's just got to keep creating things, like create them because you feel the want to create them, not because you're trying to achieve XYZ and impress someone. If it comes from the right place, eventually people will vibe with that,
And there's so many stories where somebody would write a song and they had no idea what they had their hands on, and somebody else heard it and got it to different people. And next thing they know, they have a #1 hit through a Blake Shelton or a Randy Travis or whoever.
So many of my classmates in college, that exact thing has happened to them.
No.
I've seen dozens of my classmates from, 8-10 years ago now superstars, and it's like Ingrid Andress, Charlie
Yeah.
Puth. I went to school with all those people. I sat in class next to them, and
Wow.
you just
Wow.
see them blossom, and you're like, it's definitely possible. And you see the work that they put in. I know they put in the work. Not everyone else is going to see that, but I'm like, I was in class with them. Like, I know that they were,
You saw.
Yeah,
that they were
yeah.
determined. There's a different type of, especially going to school like Berklee, there's 5,000 kids there that are trying to do music, right? So you kind of can see the energy and the passion from certain people, and it does carry them through, so you just got to have that work ethic.
Is it really like the real regular world outside of music within that school, where it's usually about 20% of people that's really doing what it takes?
Yeah, I would say less than that. I would say 1%. I would say it's such a certain special type of person that has the work ethic and has the passion. It's like such a weird combination of both, right? And have talent, right? You have to have that soul talent somewhere. But to have all three of that trifecta is very rare, very special. And also you got to relate to people, right? People have to like you. So sometimes you're making amazing music, but it's just not hitting with the right audience. And sometimes you just got to experiment a little bit to find those songs that work. Not just, that just takes time,
And now, speaking of that, we talked a little bit about the struggles and the sacrifice. Let's flip the script and go the other way. What are a few wow moments that you've had in your career so far?
So I would say a year ago in August, I put out a song called 27, and it was the most ironic song. I wrote it by myself in one session in like under an hour. And I came up with this concept about the 27 Club and how like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting older. I can't thrive on being a young artist anymore necessarily. I'm like, well, is that all I have to live for is being in my early 20s and being a good singer, being a teenager? Like what happens after that? And I kind of put out that song, and it's today, Spotify took that song and ran with it on my own independently. Like I didn't have one promoter. I didn't have one manager working with me. That song I just put out there, and I honestly put it out there because I thought it was a great singer-songwriter type of song. I was like, maybe a publisher will hear this and see some light in this song and see potential. And that didn't necessarily happen, but like the response that I got from that song just through streaming and people following me on Instagram, still people turn 27 and tag me in that song, So that was one of those moments. It's like, wow, I did that all by myself. I didn't even send the song to that many people besides the guy who produced it. And it still is my top rated song today, with no help, with no exterior help besides my producer. So it just goes to show, like, sometimes you just got to trust a little bit in your own self, and you don't need, dozens of people telling you what is right or what is wrong,
And they're not always right, even though teams are great, but they're not always right.
No one really knows, it's kind of like, who knows what the next number one song is going to be next month or next year? No one knows. And I would say after that, the other wow moment I have, when I was graduating from Berklee, I was 21 years old, and I got chose to sing. We have like honorary doctorates every year when you graduate, and that specific year, one of the honoraries was Doug Morris, who at the time was the CEO of Sony Music, and he's one of the most decorated industry execs ever. He's worked for, he's the CEO of Universal before he was the CEO of Sony. He's retired since, but they actually chose me to represent Stevie Nicks, who he signed back in the 80s after Fleetwood Mac. So I got to sing a Stevie Nicks song for him in an arena in front of 10,000 people. And so that was one of those like whoa moments, and I felt so at home doing that. And obviously, like, I would have never got that experience if I didn't go to Berklee. But I look back at it now and I'm like, that was so fast. Like when you're 21 years old and you're trying to graduate, and people are like, yeah, by the way, you're going to sing for the CEO of Sony. And you're kind of like, okay, like throw me up there. But like, I look back at it now, I was like, wow, like I had no fear doing that. Like imagine what I could do, beyond that,
So tell us about your new single, Wait Up.
Yeah. So Wait Up has been one of these songs that I've brought into so many different sessions over the years. I actually had one or two other versions of it before this version. And I played it at other venues in the other type of version that I had. But I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, one of the producers I have worked in the past, his name's Peter Shurkin, and he set me up on this with Alden Witt, who I actually went to school with at Berklee, and then another lady named Annie Clements, who is amazing. She's the bass player for Maren Morris, actually. She's been on tour all over the world. She used to tour with Shania. She used to tour with Sugarland. She's really, really a special person in Nashville. And so I got to rewrite this song with the two of them. And I just think the song is really fresh and different from anything else I've put out. It kind of reminds me of like a boy band era type of song. And I think it's kind of interesting that like Shania Twain was at the height of her career in the boy band era. So I kind of like, the lyrics are kind of campy and kind of, kitschy and fun. But I think like a lot of females are scared to put out songs like that now because it's so male dominated that girls tend to go for the sad songs, where I just kind of wanted to put out something that was fun. People could dance to, play in their car, get ready in their bathroom, just something that's like feel good and fun. And I felt like I was missing that in my catalog. So it felt like the right song choice for me for this next single.
Love that. So as you know, a lot of people, they see you, but they don't see the team around you. And I know your team's growing a little bit. So tell us a little bit about the team that helps you be who you are.
Yeah. So this specific song, a lot of people had their hands in just because it's been around for so long. Like I said, I almost cut it maybe 5 years ago, solo, independently on my own. And then I just kind of held on to the song for a while, and the right, group of people were in the room that day to rewrite the song. But Peter is one of those guys that one of the producers who set up that co-write for me. He's been working with me for several years. I met him randomly at a CRS party, which is the radio stations in all the country. In February, all the radio stations come to Nashville and they throw parties basically. And I met him at one of those. And I remember Body Like a Back Road had just come out. I just specifically remember chatting about that song. Like, what do you think of this song? I'm like, I think it's really cool. Like, whatever. And Peter actually was super implemental the last several years. He got me some cuts on Netflix, and we had a cut on ABC doing TV sync stuff. So he's been super awesome to me. He's worked with a bunch of independent artists in town. And then the producer I actually had produce this specific version of the track, his name is Anthony Rankin, and he's super under the radar. I think he's going to blow up and be a massive songwriter producer one day. But he is the touring guitarist for Gary Allan. So he tours just like any other. He's on the road, the majority of the time, but when he's home, he does independent produce projects. So he's produced a couple of my projects so far. So I'm excited to get to work with him again. He produced that 27 song that I did independently a year ago. So it'll be cool to kind of see all those crossfires come together in one song and see how people react to it.
So speaking of teams, we have a third co-host.
Yes, we do.
10-year-old that we bring on to ask a few questions. So
I'll go get him.
And we've got a 3-year-old that when she gets older, she'll be plugged into the show too.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. I'm here for it.
Got to keep it in the family.
Yeah. Did you know my first job in Nashville? I only worked there for about 6 months, but I was babysitting after school at an elementary school. So it was pre-K through 6th grade. And I worked there 4 hours a day from 2 to 6 after school, just basically being an extra set of hands, being a babysitter after school. But so I'm very familiar with hanging out with the elementary kids. That was my first job in Nashville. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what's kind of next for you?
I actually already have a single that's ready to go. Probably will put it out in the new year. It has winter vibes, I say. It's kind of more of a ballad. But Anthony Rankin produced it. I wrote it by myself. So it's going to be a cool change up from still kind of the same genre as Wait Up, but it'll be a different vibe. So.
Oh, wow.
All right, Kate. So what's for your foods?
Oh, my favorite foods. If I'm going out to eat, I really love sushi. Can never go wrong. If I'm eating at home, I really like some lemon chicken or something easy like that. But usually I'm out and I'm usually eating sushi or tacos, one of the two.
Because what's yours?
Mine's pizza.
Pizza is so good. I like thin crust pizza though. Do you like thick crust or thin crust?
He probably likes it all. He likes it all.
Yeah, it's all good, right? Can't go wrong with pizza.
All right, what's your TV show?
Oh my gosh. You're going to laugh at this. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Impractical Jokers on True TV. It's basically like a candid camera show, but I just think and I just think the comedians on there are so funny. So if I'm just like coming home from a long day and need a quick laugh, I always put on Impractical Jokers.
Some of our favorites was Punk'd, of course, back in the day.
Yes.
And then now it's Ridiculousness. We love with the show and the videos.
I've always been, and I'm a big HGTV girl. I love Flip or Flop, and I have my real estate license, so I always love watching House Hunters and all the houses. So I'm always watching that too.
Because what's yours?
Mine's SpongeBob.
Oh, can't go wrong with that either, though. I used to watch a lot of that. Yeah, back in the day.
Okay, what's your movie?
Ooh, my favorite movie is probably The Notebook. It's from 2004, so it's a little bit on the older side now, but probably The Notebook.
That's Sandy's favorite.
It's so good. It's so cute. Every time I love it.
And yours?
Mine's Minions.
That's awesome. That's a really funny movie too. I like that.
Yeah, we even got to see the newest one in the theater in Nashville.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Not this last trip to Nashville, but back in August, July trip. We've been to Nashville. We go to Nashville about 4 times a year, but we make it through the summer. Like, that's amazing. We just went for our 20th anniversary, which was October 5th. So we went for that.
Well, congrats.
Well, thanks. And so that'll be probably our last time until spring, summer next year, and then we'll do the pattern again.
That's awesome. That's the way to do it, though. Have a little schedule and, feel like Nashville is part of your own house.
Plan on eventually moving out there.
Oh, well, I'm a real estate agent, so you can call me when you're ready to move.
Bye, thanks.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
So if you could co-write with any artist, who would it be?
Ooh, I would say one of my answers would be Lori McKenna. Probably obviously she's a hit songwriter and incredible and has written amazing songs, but also she is from Massachusetts and grew up a couple towns away from where I grew up. So I think it would be really cool to like pick her brain about, starting her music career in Massachusetts and then eventually making the jump to Nashville. But besides that, probably Shane McAnally or Luke Laird are probably my other 2 favorites. They write all the hits, so really obsessed with everything they do.
So if you could co-write with any artist who's passed on, who would you bring back to spend a day with you?
Oh, I mean, I would have to say some old school Elvis before he went into the army. I mean, I know it's said that he didn't write a lot, but I would really like to write a song with him or for him.
What would be a question you'd want to ask him?
Oh, I think it would just be cool to see an artist, from the 50s or from the 60s before social media hit, and how more than a question, I would love to just kind of interrogate their creative process and just see how they work without all those outside influences,
It was probably easier.
Yeah. Again, they were just going off of what felt right. And, and I feel like that's what we're all trying to write every day. And sometimes it's hard when you hear all this brand new music come out every day and you feel so influenced sometimes, but yeah.
Back in 2015, we interviewed Kelsey Ballerini before she was Kelsey.
Wow,
and one of the questions I always asked her was where she wanted to be in 5 years. And I always like to tell this story before I ask the guest that same question, because the answer she gave us back then is exactly the life she's living now.
She had it planned out.
She had it planned out. So knowing that, where do you want to be in 5 years?
I would like to start kind of not a fresh genre, that's the wrong word, but a fresh avenue in Nashville. I don't plan on following any sort of path that's been done, just because I feel like I'm 29 now. That, like I said, that phase of me moving to Nashville and getting a pub deal that first year is kind of past. So I have to kind of pivot and think of another way. And I actually it's ironic you're asking me this question, because a week or 2 ago, I met this producer for HGTV at the bar and we were just talking, and like we became good friends after, and like exchanged numbers. And she was like, let's like talk show ideas. I think this would be like really interesting. That like you've been in Nashville and you're a real estate agent and you're a musician, working musician in town. So I think dabbling in TV simultaneously while putting out music would be a really cool avenue for me that I would like to explore a little bit.
Awesome.
So let's look further down the road. Let's say 15 years down the road, and let's say you're a success on a grand scale. Whatever that looks like for you, you've made it.
Yeah.
What do you hope you never forget along that journey?
Well, I would say first and foremost, my love for performing on stage is always my number one factor. Even though I do love songwriting, there's nothing quite like being on stage with your guitar and singing to an audience. So I would like to keep that fire first and foremost of like, I want to play shows no matter how old I get. And if my voice can't hit every single note, I still want to keep that passion, because playing live shows is what makes everything else make sense for me. And then besides that, I would love, to be headlining some tours, still being on the radio, releasing some hit music. Again, like be a little bit of a fire starter, keep putting out songs that are a little left of center but that can still work in the format. So.
And what are some things that inspire you?
Yeah, all the time. This is a little bit cliche, but like one of my first country music influences, I was in high school when I first got into country music, and Miranda Lambert was that first female artist that really clicked for me, that I was kind of like, okay, I like can see what she's doing. I see where she's coming from. I don't think I'm exactly like her. And then, several years later, Maren Morris came out, and she just, crashed the entire stigma of genre lines essentially. And I think it was so cool what she did, because she really was that fire starter of jumping right over to pop radio. And I would really love to do that same thing. And maybe it's not jumping from pop radio to country radio. Maybe it's more jumping from music to TV and different outlets, or podcasting or something like that. But yeah, they inspire me every day, because I feel like, again, they have those careers where there weren't that many influences that they could copy. And they were kind of, deciding their own destiny with every single song that they released. So I think about that all the time. I'm like, it's so hard what they do, and they're so successful. So I definitely look up to them a lot.
And what would you like for your legacy to be in music? What would you like to be most known and remembered for?
I would like to be remembered for just being an excellent vocalist first and foremost. I think my vocals are kind of different than what Nashville is used to. And I think it would be really cool to, break that barrier and extend other lines that females can break into. We have to keep pushing the genre so the genre doesn't die, So I really would like to be remembered to have a singular voice that doesn't necessarily sound like everyone else. And also just for my work ethic, again, like I would love to get into other media and be remembered as an all-around influence for Nashville, just as much as a great musician and great performer. So,
And if you could say anything to your followers, what would you want to tell them?
I would obviously say thank you so much for being on this journey with me. And I genuinely say with me, because without them, nothing grows, nothing goes to the next step. So first and foremost, thank you. But also, like, they inspire me too, so keep sending me what you like and don't like, because that's always going to be my inspiration for what keeps me making more music. So
love that. So as we close out here, what advice would you give someone who wants to do what you do?
I would say a good external advice would be nice to everybody and shake everyone's hand and make everyone feel good about themselves, because you never know who you're going to meet, who's going to be that next songwriter, who's going to be that next artist on the radio, or next music industry exec that you could have been sitting next to in college. Like, you don't know who you don't know. So be nice to everyone, try to meet everyone as much as you can. And internal advice would be when you hear a no, sometimes being understood is overrated. Maybe I'm going to write a song about that. So I would say just keep doing what you do, build your craft, and try to improve every day.
And when you're talking about that you never know, I love the story where a songwriter's up there on stage singing, and at the end of this one song, this guy walks up to him, and you'll probably figure out who I'm talking about in a minute. But walks up to him and says, "You know what? I'm here in Nashville. I'm going to get a record deal, and I want that song of yours to be my first cut."
Mhm.
And it ended up being The Dance, and it was Garth Brooks.
I knew you were going to say Garth Brooks. I was like, I know this is going to be a Garth story. I could tell. I could tell.
And
Yeah.
again, you never know. Again, that's one of them things, like you were saying, meet everybody, network with everybody. Because I mean, I'm sure when that guy left that day, the songwriter, he probably thought, I'll never hear from him again. And yet
Yeah.
he's wrote most of Garth's songs now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said in the beginning, I was sitting in class with Ingrid Andress and Charlie Puth and a bunch of hit songwriters that are now on Music Row. And, maybe I should have reached out to them a little more in college. I think about it, but that's good learning curve for the future, is like meet as many people as you can, because you just never know who is going to be that next thing.
Yep.
So.
So tell everybody how they can find you.
Well, you can definitely follow me on Instagram at Kate Cameron Music. My new single, Wait Up, is coming out October 28th. It's going to be really fun. So we'll see how that goes. And I have more music coming along the way. You can also, follow me on Facebook, TikTok, all the things. But Instagram's probably where I'm most active for sure.
Love that. We really enjoyed having you on the show today, and we look forward to having you back down the road.
Absolutely. I'd love to be back. It was awesome getting to talk with you guys. I really appreciate all your time, and all your questions were awesome. So I will look forward to following you guys too.
Oh,
Sounds
we
great.
appreciate
We appreciate
that. Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Absolutely. Have a